Well, good evening, everyone. I'd like to go ahead and call the meeting to order at 6 p.m. And we're going to go ahead and take roll call at this time.
Commissioner Santos? Commissioner Ortiz?
Here.
Commissioner Franz?
Present.
Vice Chairperson Rodriguez Ceja?
Present.
Chairperson Fajardo?
Present.
Sorry, Pauline, I was having difficulty issues. Present, joining in virtually from my residence.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission. For the record, Commissioner Santos, I have to ask this pursuant to the Brown Act. Are you feeling ill this evening? It's just for the record.
Yes, I fell ill yesterday with the stomach flu.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. This time I'd like to ask Ms. Franz, if you don't mind, doing the Pledge of Allegiance for us, please. Thank you very much. This time, do we have any public items for that are not on the agenda, please?
There are none.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to item number 4.1, the Planning Commission meeting minutes of January 22nd, 2025.
I'll make a motion to accept the Planning Commission meetings of January 22nd.
I'll second.
Okay. Get a roll call vote?
Commissioner Santos?
Aye.
Commissioner Ortiz?
Aye.
Commissioner Franz?
Aye.
Vice Chairperson Rodriguez Ceja?
Yes.
Chairperson Fajardo?
I'll abstain since I was not present at that meeting.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Now we move on to item number 5, our public hearing items with the staff report. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners, Chair, Vice Chair. My name is Jose Luis Jara, Assistant Planner with the Community Development Department. And before you, we have a request for a tentative parcel map, planning review, conditional use permit, and an environmental review for the Maverick Fueling Station project. Little overview of the project. The applicant, Catherine Otis with SD Collaborative, submitted an application on behalf of Maverick Incorporated for the approval of the tentative parcel map, planning review, conditional use permit, and environmental review for a initial study mitigated negative declaration pursuant to CEQA. The subdivision includes the subdivision of a 8.62 acre lot located at the northeast corner of Avenue 45 and Golf Center Parkway. The proposal includes a fueling station, a convenience store, and supporting improvements along the 3.62 acre lot for that fueling station and convenience store. So if you're familiar with this area, it's down the street from TKB. North of TKB, there is a 7-Eleven to the west across Golf Center Parkway. And then down the street, west on Avenue 45 is our yard where India Water Authority is located. And to the south of the site as well, there's existing industrial uses, as well as to the east. And then to the north, we do have the Whitewater River and channel and adjacent to that is the I-10 freeway. So again, just to give some background for the zoning, it is, right there in the star, that is the site. It is located in a heavy industrial zone. Adjacent to the south and then the southeast, it's heavy industrial as well, where you saw that 7-Eleven to the west across the street from Golf Center Parkway, that is light industrial. And where you see blue there, that's actually public and institutional, where there are 2 schools, I believe a high school. And then to the north, the Whitewater River, like I mentioned, that is actually zoned as parks and open space. And the general plan, which is kind of our long-term plan for the city and sets up, land use, the implementation, which was zoning, as you saw in the previous slide. Very similar. Again, the project site is designated as workplace and employment district. So again, supports a lot of the industrial uses, as well as, forgot to mention, but the zoning does allow for convenience stores and fueling stations subject to a CUP approval per the Planning Commission. Again, this is the proposed tentative parcel map. As mentioned, it's an 8.62 acre lot. The applicant proposes to create 2 lots. Parcel A, where Maverick Fueling Station would be located, and the convenience store is 3.37 acres. And the remaining parcel, Parcel B, which has, for future development, would be 5.26 acres. After review from staff, meets all the requirements per the Subdivision Map Act, as well as the code, the Unified Development Code, and our general plan. This is the proposed site. There's 2 main accesses for the project for Maverick. One on Golf Center Parkway with 2 out lanes and 1 in, and then on Avenue 45, same as well, two out lanes and then 1 in for the project. The convenience store would be approximately 6,000 square feet in size, and it will consist of a fueling station or fueling area under a fueling canopy, where that is approximately 7,200 square feet. That will have 10 pumps with 20 different fueling positions. It would also, the project also proposes 4 fueling stations that are not under a canopy that are going to be designated for diesel and commercial fueling areas for trucks. To support the convenience store, the parking, the project is proposing 38 spaces, including 288 accessible spaces as well. These are the proposed building elevations facing north on Golf Center Parkway towards kind of the Whitewater Canal, or towards the Golf Center. So this is the east. That's going to be facing kind of towards the intersection on Golf Center and Avenue 45. This is west and south facing Avenue 45 towards the back. So the color and building materials, the facade, proposes some neutral desert tones to complement the surrounding environment, as well as a stone veneer and metal roofing to provide durability and modern design. It also proposes some large storefront windows for natural lighting and visibility into the store. perspective, and these are some of the building materials. The material on the facade mostly is going to be consist of board and batten fiber cement panels that will be accented with some, again, the stone veneer there. These are some of the fueling canopy elevations. The canopy height is going to have, at its maximum height, about 19 feet, just to give it some kind of comparison to the main building. And a lot of the finishes are going to be similar to the color scheme that is proposed for the main building for the convenience store. To the west and to the east. So the proposed floor plan features a retail space with food and prep kitchen area, and then walk-in beverage coolers and restrooms and storage areas. And again, kind of open for, sight lines for those windows to see in to make sure for security purposes. Proposed landscape is, we have a city standard per our Unified Development Code to require 10 for commercial projects. The proposed is 21% and will feature, some shrubs and ground cover like red yucca and Catalina, amongst other. And then the gold you see up there, that's going to be decomposed granite that is gold in color, as well as trees. The trees, I'll give an example on the next slide, but they're desert willows and then some myrtles and African sumacs. But I also want to add that we added a condition to add additional palm trees for that intersection there between Avenue and 45 and Golf Center, to make sure that there's a focal point on that corner to accentuate and create a better landscape and sight on that corner for the project. These are some of the trees that the applicant is proposing. So after review of the project, the project does meet the general plan and goals for workplace and employment district. As well, like I mentioned, fueling stations are allowed with a conditional use permit in the heavy industrial zone. And per the environmental review, a initial study and mitigated negative declaration, along with a mitigation, monitoring, and reporting program that was provided to you. All potential significant impacts mitigated through the project designs and conditions. So that mitigation, monitoring, reporting program would be part of, as well as with the conditions of approval, would meet the general plan and zoning requirements. So we did receive some comments, first from the public review period. Per CEQA, a MND, or a mitigated negative declaration, is required to be circulated for 30 days. So during that review process, we did receive some comments from some agencies that were included in your packet today. And as well, before the meeting, there were some comments from some members of the public that were included on the dais for you today. So I just wanted to make sure that's clear, that was provided to you for your consideration. With that, staff recommends the approval of resolutions number 2103 and 2104, 2105, and 2106, conditionally approving the Maverick Fueling Station project. With that, I am here for any questions as well. I believe the applicant is here and has provided a presentation for you guys, as well as the environmental consultant is here for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for the presentation? On the presentation? Yep.
I do.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Okay, so just one that just popped up right now. What's the height, allowable height for that structure within the highest point for that structure where the gas stations are going to go? Like, what's the allowable height? Do we know? Your cheat sheet, don't worry about it. It just popped into my head right now as you were saying, because 19 feet is. That's for the highest point of the canopy is 19 feet. Is that right?
19 feet 3 inches, correct.
Got it. Okay.
But it's well under the maximum allowed. Let me just pull that up just because I have it written down somewhere.
Don't worry about it, Jose. Well, maybe while you're looking up that, I can ask. I think I have a question for our council regarding the declaration. Sorry, I'm pulling it up. So we have in front of us 4 resolutions, right? And my question is, do the first 3 resolutions, do they move forward if the last resolution with the negative declaration doesn't?
So the entire thing would be one packet. So every resolution is kind of contingent upon each other. That's how I understand the project to be. If the question is, would the project move forward without the environmental, I would venture to say the answer is no. You do need the project is contingent upon the environmental MND and the initial study in MND. So it is one full project. So everything, it's a tentative map, a CUP, and all, whatever the other 2 are.
I appreciate that clarification, and I had forwarded this question to our director prior. There was a bit of confusion on my end about the mitigated negative declaration, in that it classifies the project under locally serving retail, and it cites OPR's local hazard mitigation plans. And I emailed and I said, that doesn't, I went through that document and it doesn't. So I just wanted to get clarification on that, because that's what was presented to us. And then if that is the classification, then, well, actually, I'll let you address that question.
Okay. Commissioner, so we do want to refer back, since the city did not do their own VMT guidelines, we do want to refer back to the county, Riverside County. And so they do have that clause or that provision for local serving retail. And that's kind of fitting, but I was actually in a meeting today with the local regional planning agency, and brought up this question just because it is a good question. If a gas station, is commonly reviewed, and that provision or exemption, local serving retail, would apply. And they agreed with staff that because, when people are driving around, they usually, it's one of those things that it's a need, it's usually nearby. It's not like they're searching and searching. It's like, okay, they're going to drive by a gas station is near them, and they're going to get gas. They're going to fill up. So the other interesting part to your question is we do not define it, and the county does not define it. We could put it in our zoning code, but we haven't. If we did one day do our own guidelines for VMT, that would be a good thing to put in there. But there isn't a concrete definition for that. But it is agreed upon by the variety of, staff and county, et cetera, regional, that a gas station would qualify under that definition.
Okay, so just for clarification, the report mentioned OPR's local hazard mitigation plan, but in reality, what they were looking at was page 20 of the transportation analysis guidelines for Riverside County, is what?
I believe so. Our environmental consultant, or the consultant for the applicant, is here, and probably if there was a typo or an error, that she could clarify that.
Okay, great. And then you're saying because right there it says that the project is local serving, and that's a determination, but the transportation department, RIFCO Transpo, doesn't have a definition, and we certainly do not. That's what.
Yep.
Just want to make sure that okay, great. Okay, that's it for now.
And just to circle back to your first question, the max height is 55 feet, so it's, like I mentioned, well under the proposed for the field canopy.
And there's also a provision there that says the 3 stories too, to allow, if they can meet that height, they can do 3 stories.
Thank you once again, Jose. Appreciate that. It's my understanding we can go ahead and open up the public comment now. We have the applicant available. Are they here in person or are they presenting on Zoom? Oh. Thank you, sir. I'll just have you present your name and who you're with. And
Okay, my name is Kevin Dice. I'm a site development manager with Maverick. I'm located in Salt Lake City, Utah. Do you need my address? I'm not sure. Some require it, some do not. All right. Do you have the presentation? Oh, we're over there. Thank you. As you know, we're looking at the site on 45th and Gulf Center Parkway. I'll go over some of these quick because you already saw some of the stuff like the aerial where their location is. You saw what our site plan is, and basically that's the parcel map and what we're going to be developing, what's going to remain. Real quickly, I'd like to go over the Maverick history because it's important to us. Maverick dates back to the 1930s. It's still within the Call family, so it's privately owned. And it started in Randolph, Wyoming as a single store and everything, and went through its own growth and everything to get the name of Maverick back in the 1950s. In September of 2023, we completed the acquisition of Come and Go, which is a very large C-store operator in the Midwest that doubled our size from a little over 400 stores to over 800 stores now. We have 14,000 employees at this point. We're very complementary in terms of what we do, and so we're becoming a very larger player. It's still privately owned. We operate 24/7, 365 days a year. We have fresh food, packaged food as well, obligatory roller dogs if you love them. I do, which is really good. And we do sell tobacco as well as beer and wine, and we intend to apply for a 20, whatever, it's a Title 20 beer and wine license for this site. Bathrooms are open to the public, meaning that if you're driving along and you have a child that has to go to the bathroom, you can stop, use the bathrooms, and not have to buy anything. There are certain stores there where you do have to buy anything, so we do not require a purchase. And we think that that's just a public benefit, and we like to put that out there. And something that's really important to us is that we are not a truck stop. We're not like a Flying J, even though Flying J is part of the was originally developed by J. Call from the Call family. We are not a truck stop. We do not allow overnight parking. We don't have trucker lounges, showers, or any type of internet service that they can connect up to, so when they time out to do some of their bookings and things like that. We went through a lot of this stuff in terms of the size of the store and everything 24/7, but just to give you an idea, we employ between 18 and 20 employees over 3 shifts. The 24-hour shifts. We have a store director, we have operations director, as well as a food manager. We have retail and food service leads, and they do various things. And we have retail members that are definitely sometimes part-time, sometimes full-time. So we do offer part-time employment on this. Some of the benefits that our full-time employees get, you can see it right there. We offer a very enticing package. So you get full medical, you get a 401k, you have tuition reimbursement, which I wish I had when I was in college, and things of that name, bonus opportunities, and we like to hire and promote from within. A lot of our people have many years with the company. They start off in the stores, and then they end up in the corporate offices, and they become part of the Maverick family, as we like to say. Real quick on the food, because we get this question a lot. Okay, you have roller dogs, you have donuts. Yes, we have all that. But we do have a very robust fresh food offerings. We make fresh sandwiches, we make salads. We offer beverages that are not just sugar beverages, although you can go and you can get a nice fountain drink there and everything else. At the same time, we offer hot burritos and breakfast burritos. We do pizzas of different style. I'm not sure if anybody has ever had a Detroit-style pizza. It's a very thick pizza, one would say. It's very robust, I'll tell you that. Nachos, and again, the obligatory roller dogs. Something we also like to point out is that we refer to this as downstream economic benefits, meaning that when we come into an area, we have to hire certain people and certain operations in the area. So we hire locally to do things like the landscaping, cleaning of the windows, other repairs to roof and things like that. So not only are we bringing a hiring from this area, but we do reach out to the community and we pull in a lot of income from the community in order to maintain the site. So we do like to have roots in the community. A lot of our local, some of our local food is purchased here, as well as, we provide all the utilities from the locally and all that, which we have to do. Local trash disposal as well. We went through all this before. These are our elevations. I'm not sure if any of you have visited our Desert Hot Springs store. As you go north here, you hit Desert Hot Springs. We're right off on the east side. And this store will be very much like that store. It's laid out differently, but we will have the, what we call the commercial court for larger vehicles, RVs, and things of that nature, which is usually outside of the store a little bit. And then we have the forecourt, but it'll be the same look. The building will be approximately the same size. Depending on the way that we lay out the size, we use different configurations of building, which varies like 10 square feet, something like that. It's very, very small. And you saw that. The canopy question didn't just answer that. The canopies, we have to have the canopy at least high enough as it goes to the bottom deck so that a truck can drive underneath. And we're talking about a semi-truck. So it's at least 19 feet to the bottom deck, then we have the fascia, and then we have the top. So we do meet the code on all that. Something we always like to point out is that our trash enclosures are not just chain link fence. We do CMU block around it. It's a colorful block. We do a nice gate in the front that can be locked. And per the California building code, we have to have 3 different bays because we have to have recycling as well as now with any food items have to go into a separate recycling. And you saw the color palette. And that's basically the floor plan as you saw. We have cold cases around the side. In the one corner up on the side, we call that the beer cave, where you can go in and buy cases of beer that'll be kept cold. And then you have, as you go across, that's where the food service area is. We call that the bonfire grill. And that's just the name that we have for that, and that's where they make all the fresh food items. And as you go around, then you hit the coffee machines and the soda machines, and then you have what we call the gondolas for all the prepackaged food that we can do that. The cash register is located in the front so that the cash registers here, they can turn around and look out the windows and see everything that's going on in the forecourt. So that's part of our security as well. This is our signage plan. Now, there's a lot of red on there because a lot of it, we have a lot of directional signs in there. But it's also pointing out where the Maverick logos will be, as well as we're looking at one shorter sign along Golf Center Parkway, and then we would like to have a larger sign that would be in the opposite corner on the adjoining parcel. And as is really important to retail, signage is very important to retail. The height of that sign, we are talking with staff about how high we can go with that sign, and we continue to work with them. If we need a variance to go a little bit higher, we'll deal with staff on that, and we'll probably be back here before you, but we would like to deal with staff on that before we get in it tonight. Well, what I did here is I did 3 different ones because 40's allowed, then you have 50, and then you have 60 foot right there. But I wanted to give you an idea of what we would like to have at that corner. And this is all the signage plan. And I appreciate your time. I appreciate you having interest in this and everything. That the corner is very attractive. We looked at that corner because it's very close to the highway, and we like to capture the traffic. You're asking about the VMT. What we call that is we capture the bypass traffic. because people are going to be going by. We're not a destination. You don't sit there and go, wow, I'll go to Maverick. You know, it's just a necessity type of thing. But you could be going by saying, I'm thirsty, so you could stop there. Appreciate your time. If you have any questions, I'll be available. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the presentation there, sir. Any questions for the applicant? Sir, if you
I
could
have
come
one.
back to the podium. Sorry, we have a few questions.
We should have just asked you to
We
stay.
should just ask you. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I should anticipate, but, you know, I'm trying to-
Appreciate that. Thank you.
So, thank you for being here. Question for you. So with the world shifting, right, and we're trying to get away from gas cars, even though I don't know where that's going, none of us do. What are you guys, is your infrastructure designed that at some point it would be an easy switch to move from maybe not all gasoline to some electric to some other options, or what are you planning for the next change in automotive needs?
I really wish I could answer that accurately, but what we are doing right now is, per the California code, we have to provide electric chargers. So one of the requirements is that one of those chargers have to be ADA accessible. So with that said, one of those ADA accessibilities has to be van accessible. So you really have to provide two ADA accessible EV chargers. And then you have to provide one charger that it will not be ADA, because you can't park a non-ADA stickered car in an ADA spot. So what we will be doing is we'll provide 4 spaces, 2 chargers for electric vehicles, and that's per the code on that. And we are plumbing the site for an additional 4. So eventually we could have up to 8 chargers at that site.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question. So you mentioned that you opened one in DHS. You're trying to open one here. There's our Hot Springs. You're trying to open one here in Indio. Do you have any other plans to add more here in the Coachella Valley?
Yes, definitely. We're looking south towards the thermal area as one. We were looking at one in Cathedral, but there are Caltrans issues in terms of access and everything, but we're working with the city of Cathedral right now to see if we can work through that. Going north, the next one would be in the Paris area. We're putting one there. As you go south, past the Salton Sea, when you get down into the El Centro area, we have one store that's opened in town in El Centro. Then we're looking on Highway 111, right as you cross over 8. We're looking at one there. Then we have a site that we're working on down in Calexico, right as you come across the border. So we're making the Maverick is making a significant investment in this area, in Southern California as well as Northern California. These stores are not cheap. You know, they're not like $1 or $2 million stores. They're much more expensive than that. And with the number of people that we have to employ to keep the store open at 24/7, that's a major investment in this area. So just along this area, we could have up to 4.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions? Go ahead, sir.
It might be for your consultant for the environmental
Okay,
impact
thank you.
review. You saw it coming. And VMTs, I think, just to clarify for folks that are tuning in, and the reason I'm going to sort of scrutinize it a little bit is we've gotten a lot of comments about the environmental impact, and I think it's valuable for you to walk us through that so that we can respond to some of those questions. So VMT, what is it and why should we care about it?
Okay.
And before you present, if you could just tell us your name, who you represent.
Yes.
And
yes,
thank you very
I
much,
can.
Miss.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and honorable chairpersons. My name is Christina Willis, and I'm president of Willis Environmental Planning. I have 35 years of environmental consulting experience in Southern California, and I was the project manager for preparation of the initial study mitigated negative declaration. In respect for your time and some of the things that we've already talked about, there has been some overlap between the various presentations. So if I could get you to skip to slide 6, that's where we begin to talk about the mitigated negative declaration. Oh. Okay, thank you. This one, that one, okay. Oh, what? Wait, what? There we are. This is self-serve, okay. Let me turn to my page here. So our initial study evaluated the potential impacts from the entire suite of 21 environmental resource areas. We conducted a robust analysis for each one of those. We included a noise report, a cultural resource report, paleontological resource report, air quality, greenhouse gas, traffic, and we had hydrology, drainage, it's the whole 9 yards of technical studies that support our findings. The county also completed their consultations with Native American tribes under AB 52. There were 27 tribes that were invited to consult, and the only one that accepted was the Agua Caliente Band of Cahuilla Indians, and those consultations have been completed. The project has been modified based on their recommendations to include monitoring during construction by not only a qualified archaeologist, but a representative from the Agua Caliente Band. In total, the initial study identified 15 mitigation measures in the areas of aesthetics, air quality, biological resources, cultural and tribal resources. We also had identified mitigation measures for paleontological resources and for transportation. These measures have been incorporated into the project such that no significant impacts would occur. The measures have also been identified in the mitigation monitoring and reporting program for this project. And in summary, the environmental initial study has been prepared basically to determine if the project would result in a significant unmitigated effect on the environment, and we did evaluate all of the environmental issues required under CEQA. We determined that the proposed project would not have a significant effect on the project with the project modifications, and that an environmental impact report would not be required. This completes my formal presentation, and I am available for questions. And I know there was a question on VMT. VMT, what is it and why should I care? Got it. Okay. So let me forward here. Okay. So with SB 473, CEQA was changed such that CEQA no longer looked at level of service as the metric for traffic impacts, but it was now switched to vehicle miles traveled. The purpose for that was really to find a way to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And one of the ways you do that is reducing vehicle miles traveled. It not only looked at vehicle miles traveled per land use. It also evaluated on a regional level. So there are various metrics that can be used depending on your project. And so vehicle miles traveled is a factor of the number of vehicles and the distance that you have to travel. So if you have 100 cars and they travel 2 miles, then you have vehicle miles traveled of 200. But you can also have 50 cars that travel a distance of 4 miles, and you come up with the same vehicle miles traveled analysis. So one of the things that the legislation has done is it gave priority to projects that put local serving retail in the community. So in other words, those 100 cars that used to have to go 4 miles are now only going 2 miles. So that's one of the reasons that you should care about vehicle miles traveled, because the intent is to reduce greenhouse gases. Did I explain that one? Okay. So our VMT analysis, our traffic report, did include a VMT analysis. And as was previously discussed, the Office of Planning and Research had issued a memo on directing jurisdictions on how they were to assess VMT. Because once it was identified, what do we do with it? And we in the community were asking, why should we care? And they made it known to us why we should care, because this is the new metric. So our traffic impact analysis did include a VMT analysis, and rather than using OPR's guidelines, we used the Riverside County's guidelines. The city does not have their own adopted guidelines, and their traffic department is now referring over to the county's guidelines. So under the county's guidelines, the traffic impact analysis found that the project satisfied 2 criteria for screening out. One was small projects, and the other was local serving retail. And the screening criteria specifically for those are listed here. It's kind of small, I apologize about that. But small projects are screened out if the retail buildings have an area that's less than or equal to 60,000 square feet. And that's directly from the code, the guidelines that's shown on Figure 3, page 19 through 21, which you were referencing. The other area in which it qualified was local serving retail. And that's the same thing, same page as screening. And the guidelines found that the introduction of new local serving retail reduces vehicle miles traveled by shortening trips that could occur. And so the criteria to be able to be screened out under that guideline is no single store on the site exceeds 50,000 square feet, and the project is local serving as determined by the transportation department. And I believe we've heard before that, and as we researched it, the guidelines don't specifically define what local serving is. But the other thing is the transportation department, for whom the report is being prepared, they have to bless what it is that you're doing and say that you do or do not qualify. So what we've done is we prepare the analysis in accordance with the county guidelines, and those were also reviewed by our local staff, and they all agreed that this project qualified to be screened out for vehicle miles traveled.
Can I stop you there, because I just have a follow-up question.
Follow-up question. Go ahead, sir.
Do you, please, by all means, if you have one. So you're saying, and I'm just going to like backtrack a little bit, because most of the people that are tuning in and have sent in the comments, we don't know what VMT, LOS, all of that stuff. So just for clarification, LOS means before we cared about how many people were waiting in their car in a stoplight, and that mattered to us, and that's what we would look at.
Yes.
But now we care how many cars are in the vicinity because of the greenhouse gas emissions and what that is doing to the environment. And so this is really an environmental question. So when we're talking about the change in policy really is intended for environmental purposes. Now, my question, because you were saying we're referencing the VMT guidelines from Riverside County, and through that we have two different designations, the local serving and the smaller store.
Projects.
But earlier, the gentleman who presented said this is a passerby project, meaning that really the intention is intended to catch all of the folks that are on the freeway, and not necessarily the folks that live in the 1,000 feet away neighborhood, that low-income community that lives there.
Yes.
And so you see, that to me is where the disconnect is, and so I'm just wondering.
It's a matter of nomenclature. It's just a matter of the words. And each technical specialty has their own bag of words that we use. We love these words, and we use them so much that we forget that other people may not understand what those words mean. And so when we say that it is pass-by traffic, it means that exactly what you said, that traffic is not being generated by that use, but it is attracting vehicles that are already on the road. The house is generating the traffic. I'm going home, but I'm going to pass by the grocery store, I'm going to pass by the gas station, and I'm going to stop in. So that house, those 10 trips coming from that house, have to get gas somewhere. Putting it here would let us capture those trips that are passing by the site.
But the classification doesn't take into account whether there are already these types of projects in the surrounding vicinity. Is that right? So if we're saying that is already a model that somebody else thought of, and there's a gas station, in fact, it was presented to us, there's a gas station right across the street,
yes,
a 7-Eleven, and there's another gas station just 0.5 miles up the road that's also catching that passerby. So that's already traffic that is passing by that we're already capturing. So what we're saying is we're increasing that number of capture by introducing this new project and building it. So we're actually really increasing the amount of cars that are going to come into that community.
No doubt. There are going to be cars that are going to be drawn to this area.
Right.
And even if you have a gas station across the street, in order for you, if you're heading east or west or north or south, you have to make a U-turn to do that, as opposed to making a right turn in and a right turn out. That's just more convenient. That's more convenient for people.
And then one more thing. Does this evaluation and classification consider the census tract air pollution as it's defined in the Cal Enviro? by any
It
chance?
does not.
It does not.
It does not. That is not one of the criterias that CEQA requires that we look at.
Right.
So we also did an air quality and greenhouse gas analysis, and that air quality analysis used the most recent version of the Cal EE model, which models emissions from both construction and operations. And the projected air emissions for greenhouse gas were considered in that. And those projected greenhouse gas emissions are considered on top of what's already going on in the background. So whatever's there presently, there's an addition to it. So we're not just looking at one drop, we're looking at what's going on in the entire area. So the projected air emissions using vehicle miles traveled were calculated by Cal EE Mod, and they are shown on page 68 of your air quality report. They were calculated for both construction and operations phases, and the combined annual GHG emissions were found to be, this is the unit measurement that the South Coast Air Quality Management District is looking at, 2,029 metric tons of CO2 equivalents. The threshold is 3,000. So our project was found to be below South Coast Air Quality Management District's threshold, and therefore is presumed under the guidance to be less than significant. The other criteria that are looked at in the area in terms of income and things like that, that's more for an environmental justice analysis. And so usually if you don't have a general plan element for environmental justice, then that's not part of the criteria that CEQA requires you to look at.
Yeah, we have a health and equity element instead. And then just one last question to your point. You're saying we did an air quality that accounted, right now, if I go into the CalEnviro screen, it's saying it's about 80-something% of diesel particulate matter.
Yes.
That's already taken into account into this. So we're saying we know that it's already really bad with diesel particulate matter. This is adding to that, but it's not so severe, but it qualifies already as a disadvantaged community because it is severe.
Again, you've got two different measuring sticks. One is, for example, one is using inches and one is using centimeters. They're different measuring metrics, and so we are required under the California Environmental Quality Act to look at the metrics and the screening criteria, the significance criteria that have been identified and adopted by the South Coast Air Quality Management District. And we did that. We not only looked at the greenhouse gas, we also looked at a health risk assessment specifically for this reason, looking at operational toxic air contaminants and contaminants during construction. And these were done using again, South Coast Air Quality Management District's requirements and rules and procedures. And based on, they have a tool that you input your data and it tells you, it estimates, it projects what your output would be. And we use that data using their risk assessment procedures, and the health risk associated with construction and operation were found to be less than significant. And because of that, no mitigation was required beyond compliance with Air Quality Management District 402, Rule 402. That means that no land use can emit emissions that are going to have significant health effects. And then also Rule 403, which is primarily directed towards fugitive dust mitigation.
So thank you so much for that very thorough explanation. And now I guess I'm just going to reiterate back in the layman's terms, just so that we're all. So you're saying there are two different metrics that one metric that I'm considering and another metric that this impact review considered. And those two are, one is what is happening at the environmental justice level and those considerations, and that's what I'm asking when I'm referencing the CalEnviro screen. The CalEnviro screen is a tool that California uses to identify disadvantaged communities.
For the purpose of funding.
For the purpose of funding, that's right. And what they do is they get money to fund greenhouse gas emission reduction.
Yes.
That's like the intended thing. So they're saying the CalEnviro screen looks at communities that need attention to reduce greenhouse gases, right? And that's how they qualify it. But the CEQA process is saying use a different metric, one metric that might not, it doesn't actually consider that. And according to that metric, we feel that everything is just fine.
According to the metrics
To the
that have been
metrics that you
identified
use
by
to,
the
yeah, the reason
permitting
why
agency.
you, yeah, the reason
Yes.
why you gave this
Yes.
a declaration of, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's the last one. This is
I
important
understand.
for me to
Yes,
make
sir.
sure that I
Yes, sir.
have all the information, and certainly the community that they have all the.
Absolutely.
Appreciate your time.
No problem.
Commissioner, can I just add something to that discussion? So, unfortunately, as mentioned tonight, we do not have an environmental justice element. Maybe one day we will. So, there's no analysis, like the consultant mentioned, for environmental justice. If we had general plan policies, goals, programs, or measures, we would apply them to the situation or to this project, because there are disadvantaged communities, like you said, in that area. But since we don't have that in place, we didn't have that analysis per se. But I just wanted to emphasize that, that could eventually, come our way. We just don't have that at the moment.
I do want to make a clarification though to that, and I'll probably do this during deliberation even further, but we, instead of environmental justice element, which I agree with you, maybe in the future, hopefully we will, currently we have a health and equity element that is doing the SB 1000 intended purposes, right? We have policies there that are capturing food security, air quality, all of the things that SB 1000 says that we should be caring about as a municipality. Currently and I know this because I was just giving a talk at APA about this where our team was at. We have it and it's there, and we do have some policies that are specific to this type of development. So just want to make that clarification.
Thank you. Any more questions for our consultant presenter? Thank you, Miss.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. I'd like to call the applicant back up to the stand. I had a couple of questions, if I may. Thank you so much, and we appreciate you, understanding our very judicious approach to this.
Yes,
all. So
very
we
much.
appreciate that. So, a question that I had, sir, is how does Maverick prevent and mitigate potential fuel leaks and contamination?
We meet all the state of California CUPA requirements. And so that is the containment system that the tanks go into. That's the first level of safety that we do. Then all the lines are double encased. Okay, so we have a monitoring system on there called a VitaRoot system that monitors the amount of vapors that are in there or not in there. We want not in there. And then on the surface, we do have different type of paving that is underneath the canopies. We go with concrete underneath the canopies so that it captures it. And we do have systems, which is a separate type of drainage system that will capture it. And per the city code as well as the state code, it would go through either a oil sand separator, and then that is then discharged into would be the normal not the sanitary source, the storm source system. So there's different levels. First you have the containment system for the tanks itself, then you have the lines, then on top of that you will have what is captured if somebody pulls it out and drops some gas on the ground.
And what would you say the gold standard would be for those types of protections? Is Maverick the gold standard, or?
Yes, I would say it is.
Okay. Appreciate that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we do have an environmental group that monitors all spills, and anytime that there's a spill of a certain amount, we have a team that is notified. They investigate. They figure out what has to be done. If the canopy has to be closed down to be cleaned up, it's closed down and it's cleaned up.
Thank you. Another question I had is essentially it has to do with the safety and security of your facility. I understand you said it's 24/7. Appreciate that service. What types of measures do your convenience stores and your gas stations take to ensure the station is well maintained and it is secure? Because I visit many of these gas stations and some are pretty subpar looking. And there are security issues at play consistently, working alongside Indio Police Department as a member of the Chiefs Advisory Council. So I just wanted to get some information as to how you foresee that working in conjunction with IPD potentially.
First off, for the site and for the building itself, we have a camera system. So there's cameras inside the building, cameras outside the building, on the building as well as underneath the canopies as well. So there's constant monitoring going on, and that's videotaped. We have always taken the position that we work closely with law enforcement. If something happens, you know, we share our video system. Even if something would happen not on our property, say there was an accident outside on the highway or something, or on, maybe really not the highway, the roadway out there, and they're like, hey, do you think you caught something here? We will share that with them, because we look at the law enforcement as protecting us as much as it is protecting everybody else. With that said, now, there's certain areas where we have stores that have a higher crime rate. If it comes to the point that crime rate is high, we will hire security guards. Now, that would be unarmed security guards to begin with. Then, if it has to be kicked up, we would then think if we would have to go to an armed security guards. I don't think I've been to any of our stores that has an armed security guard. Then we had some stores that there would be security guards at. That would be the second level. Then we work very closely with the way that our site is designed for lighting and the way that the landscape is. Lighting is very important. Now, lighting can be a good thing for the police want us to have as bright as we can be so that everybody can see what's going on. If we're near a residential neighborhood, they don't want it very lit, and I've had many situations like that. But we will try to strike a balance between the two. Then with the landscaping, we trim the trees up at least 6 feet so you can see through. We keep all of our shrubs are lower so that it's hard for people to hide in that area. And very much because, as we all know, homelessness is a very big issue throughout the United States, not just in California, throughout the United States. Salt Lake City has a very, very large issue with homeless and things like that. So we want to keep the shrubs low so that they're not it's not an enticement for where they can sleep or encamp. So we don't want encampments occurring and things like that. We do monitor, the store staff's monitors throughout the area to make sure that there isn't a car parked that's been there for 4 hours. And if the car parked is there for 4 hours, they will go out and investigate, because we do not allow overnight parking. You know, as at a Flying J, we have trucks that can stay there for 24 hours because they time out and they have things that they have to do. But we do not allow 24 hours parking there. We want people to come in, fill up both ways, and at the same time, you know, thank you very much. If you have to stay there for maybe 10, 15, 20 minutes while you're on your phone or something, that's fine. But as soon as you get there a couple hours, we're going to make sure that you're not sleeping, you're not camping out.
Thank you for that. And since you brought up, you know, the concern with safety, and I do appreciate that, one of the other questions that came up as a result of just talking with folks about this intended project was some of the mitigating strategies that we can do, and maybe this is something for staff also that can speak to, or, you know, in light of some of the traffic flow and congestion in that area, how will the station impact that, and what safety measures have been put in place to protect our pedestrians, cyclists, etc.?
Mm-hmm. There will be sidewalks around the entire site that will meet the county standards for width, and I think the one meanders a little bit at one of the entrances. We do have, stop bars that are striped right at the entrance so that people will know how far they have to come up. The landscape is pulled back. There's a sight triangle, and I'm not sure if you've heard this before, sight triangle, where you come up and you don't want certain vegetation to be within that triangle. So not only can they look and see the cars that are coming, but they can also look and see the pedestrians that are coming. At the light, if that's a pedestrian cross, we'll make sure that they have a pedestrian crossing there. That is part of that lighting system. Now, there is a traffic light out there, and I believe that there is a pedestrian signal at that traffic light. And we don't have to do anything to that corner, that hard corner. We don't have to move that light or move anything there, but it will be connected up with all the sidewalks that will be both internally and externally around our store.
Thank you. Any follow-up questions from any of the other commissioners? No? All right, this time we're going to go ahead and thank you very much, sir. Appreciate that. Move into our deliberations. Oh, I'm sorry. Did anybody else have any comments? Any public comments? Thank you.
There are no public comments. All online comments have been sent to the commission and posted on our website.
Thank you, Ms. Mendoza. Go ahead and close the public hearing, and we're going to move to deliberations. Who'd like to start?
I'd like to start.
Please.
So thank you so much for trying to invest in the city. We really appreciate that. However, I have a few issues that I want to share with my fellow commissioners. We have to remember that Monroe Bridge is about to get constructed. You gotta remember that Gulf Center Bridge is the only one going to North Indio that has 2 lanes right now. When Monroe goes under construction, Jackson is gonna be horrible with traffic. And then adding that gas station Maury on that corner is gonna even increase traffic. That's another consideration that we have to take on. There's already 2 gas stations in that area. I don't really see the need to have another one when we have that traffic coming up. Also, there's gonna be construction happening on Avenue 42 in Gulf Center. That big, space that we're gonna have, like, I think it's houses or apartments? Yes, so why are we gonna congest our city when we have so many things going on right now? Gulf Center is the only one, it's the only bridge right now with 2 lanes that is kind of fast to get into North Indio. I live in North Indio, and I take Gulf Center all the time. I live on Monroe, but I take Gulf Center because Monroe is horrible with traffic at 5 p.m., 6 p.m., and I want to get home, I want to see my family. So adding that gas station, I don't think it's the right time with the things going on in the city. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anyone else?
Yeah,
Sir?
I can go next. So really, we're here with these different resolutions, and as I was listening to the applicant, just taking down notes and reading through the packet, there's really 2 things that are important to me. One is that this is a CUP, right? This is at the discretion of the city to take all those things into consideration. This isn't just a design review and staying within those constraints, but this is the discretion of the city to say, is this project correct? This type of development correct? And so I appreciate Commissioner Ortiz's comments because they're very in line with the considerations for the CUP, and I would agree with him. And the other thing that is important to me is the consideration of the environmental impacts. And I know that we have the environmental impact report that is, saying CEQA we don't need to have an EIR that further investigates things. What is not considering is the fact that this census tract is already a disadvantaged community, not only through the CalEnviro screen, but also through SB, I have it written down here, whatever the other, SB 5, somebody help me? Somebody? No? There's another one that designates disadvantaged community. So there's 2 ways that this census tract is already designated. The other thing is that in the impact report, and something that wasn't brought up is it's measuring against vulnerable receptors. And vulnerable receptors are schools, things of that nature. In the census tract, there's a high school, as it was announced in the report, and there's a low-income housing project that's like right across the street, 1,000 feet, I think I measured on maps. And I actually took the time to reach out to the housing development and said, hey, have your residents engaged on this? Have they been introduced to the project? And said, nope, we haven't heard anything about it. And I said, well, this is going to have some serious impacts because there will be an increase of traffic flow. And so for me, those are really the 2 major things. And I actually wrote down, Commissioner Ortiz, this isn't even considering the impact of traffic. We heard the LOS doesn't matter anymore. So how long you're sitting there is not even what we're considering in the impact review because the state doesn't care about that. But that's certainly something we should care about. And in fact, when Avenue 44, when we were looking at a affordable housing project that's going there, we heard lots from residents in that area. They were saying, stop building these things because you're congesting traffic and you're not doing enough to alleviate that traffic congestion. And so just want to echo your sentiments about the project as well, and echo that to me. I think as a city, we really need to take into consideration where these projects are going. This is something we've brought up, and I apologize, this is new to you, but we've had brought it up to our previous director. We wanted to understand where are these projects going in relation to disadvantaged communities, and we had seen a very rough map that sort of told us we know where they're going. They're going in these types of communities and not in the more affluent communities, and that, I think, is of importance. And then just to reference what I was saying, and I promise I'll shut up, the health and equity element that we have, and I think that's a really important thing to look at. So it encourages programs and practices that aim at reducing health inequities. This is HE 1.1, so this is the beginning. It asks to partner with private health initiatives, but also with residents. And then the community engagement is also a big component of that. So HE 2.5 requests that, projects that could have some major environmental impact or that needs to consider serious impacts to these sensitive receptors has robust community engagement. And that, again, I took the time to call and see if that had happened to the community that's right in that vicinity, and it hadn't. So to me, not only those issues, but also I'm finding that it might not necessarily, the process might have been not necessarily in line with what we have in our general plan.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Franz? No comments? Yes, thank you for that. Commissioner Santos?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Council, and to the applicants. Thank you for the presentation. Commissioner Ortiz did bring up a good point, reference to traffic, but I do think that a lot of the traffic issues that we do have on the Jackson Bridge is because of the Avenue 44 issue of the bridge going down during the Hillary time a couple years ago. And then the other topic was actually brought up by Ceja. So that's all I have.
Thank you, sir, for your comments. Well, at this point, the comments that I have are certainly just want to first thank the applicant and staff for presenting this evening. It's an incredible looking project. I happen to pass by the Maverick gas station on a daily, heading towards Palm Springs, taking that Gene Autry, I think it's on Gene Autry, if I'm not mistaken, exit. Nonetheless, we do have some concerns. Obviously, looking at some of the community concerns that have to do a lot with environmental justice has been noted by my colleagues here on the dais. And one of the main stays is the consideration for the city to start looking at reports on how many gas stations do we have here in the city of Indio. I'd like to know the answer to that because I don't know the answer to that. And I know that's been reported to us at some point, but I'd like to have that information from staff just for a matter of record. But before we do that, I also had some other questions relating to what the commissioners bring up in relationship to the disadvantaged communities. I'd like for us to consider, staff, a study on that that really looks at that as a metric for consideration, because that is concerning. And certainly the comments that we're receiving from the public do outline that, and I want, for the matter of record, to ensure that we are doing our due diligence by the citizens of our community. So having said that, I'd like to invite you back up, sir. If you have any information for us to make it a matter of record in terms of how many gas stations we have, how many are in the hopper, and how many are set to be completed within the next year, let's say.
Yeah, the project planner will pull up a slide and outline those. I did want to, before he does that, just add one more thing. And very good comments. I understand where you guys are coming from. I didn't bring the economic development director tonight, but I did get a chance to speak with him because there is this kind of question that's ongoing. Do we need more gas stations? Why do we have so many? And we're going to show this in just a second. So we do subscribe to a program that we pay yearly to do kind of basically a gap analysis to see, what is the need for gas stations in the city of Indio. And very, very briefly, I have a small printout. It wasn't in the staff report, but essentially it does show that there's a demand for fuel stations in the next 5 years that will grow by an additional $20 million. With that report from the Economic Development Department, they feel, we use them to assist, that there is still a large demand for additional fueling stations in the city of Indio. I think it's a very important point because Maverick probably wouldn't be even looking at this site and coming to Indio unless they've done their market analysis. We haven't hired a consultant to do a market analysis, but I think we can, as we've joined forces with our Economic Development Department, that there is a need. So, and now we'll go ahead and outline the ones that are currently in the city.
Just to highlight, a lot of the existing are highlighted in yellow. The ones that you've probably seen come before the commission are most recently LNG Market to the south there on Avenue 50, as well as Indio Gas Station Urban Plaza, and the last one is the 7-Eleven for the Indio Gateway project that are currently haven't broke any ground again, but they have been approved by the commission. The red right there, that's where the proposed Maverick would be going in relation. As you see, that's the other 7-Eleven, number 22. But these are a snapshot of all the gas stations that we have, mostly if you look along those main corridors like 111, the 10 freeway, or Indio Boulevard.
Thank you. And interestingly enough, just for my own edification, what is the metric that's utilized by municipalities to determine how many gas stations they should have? Is it in consideration with what self-storage units do with regard to their metrics?
We don't have a metric. That's a very good question. We don't have a metric. But I'm sure the applicant can come up and maybe give their general overview of when they're analyzing a city or an area, how they determine, when a station is needed. But that's not something that the city staff does, but we do have that gap analysis that does say there's a pretty good demand in the next 5 years. As I said, $20 million is a lot. And these gas stations, when they do go along a freeway or an area that, has an arterial or a very busy road, a highway, it usually is ideal for a new service station, a fueling station.
Thank you for that, sir. And what are the metrics that are utilized to get to that $20 million figure, that gap analysis?
I don't have that. We could, bring the economic development director back. I don't have all that information right now. I just have a very
I understand it's not an arbitrary number. I'm sure it's not, but just wanted to get the math behind it. But thank you for that. Go ahead, please.
So, we've actually had quite a few new gas stations over the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And I know part of it's because our growth, we've been growing very rapidly. So I understand that. How many more applicants are in the pipeline?
That's a good question. I don't have that number right in front of me, but there are others, like the Walmart one is the one that's standing out in my mind right now, the Walmart fueling station. Other than that, I don't know if Jose knows of any others, but he'll be bringing that one in the near future.
I was going to say, that's the only one that's currently in review in the pipeline as a entitlement application. But as far as the other ones like that I just mentioned, beyond that, there's none beyond that.
And I just want to take a note, because we're still in deliberation, right, about the impact and the gap analysis, which I think is all very valid, but it's very relative to the industry looking at what is best served. The impact report says you go and you audit between 7 and 9 or 7 to 8 in the morning, and then you audit 4 to 7 p.m. So I made it a point to drive down there around like 6 p.m. And neither the 7-Eleven had full, all pumps being utilized, or the AMPM on the other side, all pumps utilized. The only gas station I've seen that is in La Quinta, that Costco that has that waiting line. Other than that, all of the gas stations in our city are constantly, open. And I actually have someone very close to me who works at a gas station, and I asked this question this morning, and I said, "How often are people waiting in line to pump gas?" And he said, "Never. That's not a thing. That's not an issue for us." So, I think when we're talking about demand, what does that really mean, and what does that mean to the current community? And we're looking at a project that, that tower market went up really quickly when it came up, right? So I'm sure this is going to get built up fairly quickly as well. I'm sure that's the applicant's interest as well. But, is the demand, is that gap analysis, is that serving the current community that's there? My question.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other questions or comments from the commissioners?
I would like to add at the same time that how many more gas stations are we going to need here in the city? Like, it's just like, when is it going to be enough? Like, we could use that land for other purposes, housing, stores, you name it, other different, like, just gas stations. We have a lot. I know that there's a market for that, but at the same time, how many more are we going to put in our city? We could use the land for something else, for something better, like for, I don't know, recreation for the kids. I don't know, any other use, because land is going to be, we're not going to have land forever, we're going to get to a point, 50 years, 60 years, that our land's going to be used like other cities, like in Orange County, LA. So how many more gas stations are we going to put here in the city? That's one of my questions.
So,
Thank you, Commissioner.
so maybe
Mr.
my
Franz.
comment
Please.
to Commissioner Ortiz is, it's an economic demand, right? So it's still privately owned land. And I understand that it's a CUP, and if we choose not to approve it, then that's fine. I believe it goes to city council if we deny. And maybe they will do it or not, or does this just end here? I don't remember the rule exactly.
Is that a question for me?
Yes, it is.
So currently, the applicant would have to appeal, if this item got denied, the applicant could appeal it to the city council
city
within
council.
15 days. If this item got approved,
Then it just
somebody who wrote in a comment or something like that could also appeal it. I haven't seen all the comments, but assuming one is negative, for example, or had questions, somebody could also appeal it to the city council.
And even though I know that we all think that there are better things that we could use land for, private owners still have the right to build, what they think they can build, right? And I do agree that we need to put maybe some type of language inside our codes so that we can control and better manage this, so it's not concentrated, because we all see that there is areas of concentration, right? And I can't go back 50 years and see why things were built the way they were built, but maybe going forward we could be a little more directional. But I understand, and I know that when they talk about there's demand, there is demand. If there wasn't a demand, nobody's going to invest $20 million if they don't believe there is demand, right? It may not be. Maybe we can't see all the demand, and maybe we don't understand how much they need for profit, but there is a demand, or it wouldn't be being done. And we continue to grow, and I think when staff says these numbers say that we can have more, it's because of that. They're projecting growth and future demand as well. So I hear everything we're saying, and I think at this point, as far as I can see, we're probably ready to do a motion or something among the commissioners. And I think that I do want to thank the applicant, for coming before us. I want to thank staff for all the work that they do, and then see where we go from here. But I think I almost feel bad for the applicant, because there are different rules coming from different agencies, and people are looking at different rules different ways. And it's like there should be a set of rules, right, that we all can follow or not follow. But unfortunately, we know that's not how it works. So I find this difficult. So that was just my.
And Mr. Chair, I do have a comment.
Please. Thank you.
So in regards to the demand analysis, I believe a lot of because I do have friends that are into the gas station business aspect, and me owning a business myself as well, having conversations about this with them. From my understanding, a lot of the demand analysis that they look at basically goes in regards to the amount of traffic that's traveled amongst that road or for the site selection, the fuel prices, the competition, the availability, and as more homes are added, apartments, you start increasing the demand. So as we buy more or build more homes, there's going to be a higher demand. So if there's currently an analysis saying that there's going to be growth of about $20 million in the next 5 years, we have to do something to catch up. If not, we are going to have those long lines. And now you're going to have vehicles standing, running, waiting. And I think, like some of the comments that were already made by the other, now we're looking at potentially adding more greenhouse effect pollution, stuff like that, by having those cars wait. So that's all I have as of right now.
Thank you, Commissioner Santos. So at this point, if there's not any additional questions or comments, I'd like to open it up for a motion.
Do you want to open up the public comment?
Pardon me, sir? I'd have to open up the public comment again. Are we okay with that? I'm going to go ahead and do that. We'll open up the public comment again for the record, and we'll invite the applicant to come up. State your name again, sir, company, please.
My name again is Kevin Dice. I work for Maverick. With regard to the traffic study, yes, for the CEQA portion, we had to do the vehicle miles traveled. However, we also had to do a complete traffic study, and in that traffic study, we did take traffic counts to measure the level of service for that intersection. Now, that level of service is utilized to engineer the how best that intersection can work. And as a result of that, we are being required to add lanes, particularly on 42nd, and that we'll have 2 through lanes, 2 left turn lanes, and a right turn lane. So we're improving that intersection so that the flow can work better for that point. And Golf Center, they're not asking us to do much improvement on that, but we will have to do improve the signaling, which is a synchro study on that. In addition, we are being required to pay 25% towards the improvement of that light at that intersection. So we are adding to a more efficient intersection and flow in that area. And I just wanted to make sure that the commission knows that, yeah, level of service is very important because we use that for a lot of other greenhouse stuff, but we are doing the basic on-the-ground level of service analysis so that we can keep that intersection operating at a reasonable rate.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Thank you. We'll close public comment at this point. Return to deliberations. Thank you, sir, once again. Go ahead and get a motion, please.
Yeah, I'm ready to make a motion. I make a motion to deny Resolution 2103, 2104, 2105, and 2106.
I second.
Mr. Mayor, members of the commission, if I may, for the record, we wouldn't, may I add some of those findings that I heard? Planning Commission needs to make motions for approval or denial based upon findings. So the findings that I heard to be read into the record, and please feel free in case I missed any for the motion maker, that currently there's too much traffic at that area already. That there are issues with that area being a disadvantaged community, that the environmental impacts specifically relating to greenhouse gas, traffic, trips would negatively impact that area. There are the areas of concentration with respect to gas stations in that area. The gas station areas of concentration would poorly impact the community that is currently already disadvantaged. These were just some notes that I was taking. Let me see here. With respect to some of the vulnerable receptors, there are 2 vulnerable receptors in particular located near the project, which is a school and a low-income housing project, and those people would be disadvantaged if this or negatively impact rather if the project were to move forward. One other thing is the health and equity element of the general plan. If this project were to move forward, it would negatively impact or there would be health inequities to the disadvantaged area, specifically located in that area where the project is. And that's pretty much what I have. I don't know if I've missed any through my notes.
Does that capture everyone's comments? Okay. And I believe we had a second, correct?
Yes.
And we're going to go for the roll call vote.
Commissioner Santos,
Nay.
Commissioner Ortiz,
Aye.
Commissioner Franz,
No.
Vice Chairperson Rodriguez Ceja,
Yes.
Chairperson Fajardo,
Yes.
motion carries.
For the applicant, there's a 15-day appeal period to the city council.
All right. Moving on. Any of our action items or study items? Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to possibly bring up the opportunity for us to potentially review some guidelines for VMT and also have an opportunity for our economic development partner to provide us with a study on this gap analysis. I think that would be worthwhile. In addition to possibly looking at some information that we had discussed relative to these particular gas stations being built in disadvantaged areas.
It's a lot to also ask, but the conversation about the environmental justice element, I think, is an important one to bring back also to the city council, because I know these are all requests. This takes lots of resources to get moving. So, I think that's another one that I think would be great if our director could also bring back to the council as a consideration to put some funding allocation for us to expand from the health and equity element into an environmental justice element that actually redefines these things for us a little further.
Please.
Sorry, staff, since we're asking you for all this, I'm going to throw in one more. In the areas that we consider disadvantaged communities, what I'd also like to see is what future development is coming to that area. So if we know that there's another 1,000 rooftops, I have no idea, coming into those areas, whether it be apartments or single family residence, I think that's important when we look at what we're going to need in those areas in the future, not just what's there today.
And I don't think there's any timetable on this, folks. Certainly take your time to ensure that you do have some quality, research on that. And certainly if we do have any expediency that's required on our part, we'll reach out, I'm sure.
I think just to add to
Oh,
that, if I could. So I'll definitely look into funding options for some of the things that we're speaking about, especially if we want to do our own VMT guidelines and not use the county. So we would have to hire a consultant and develop those guidelines, which we can look into what the costs are and maybe at least a brief item we can bring back on that. As far as the economic development director, he can come back, and do a better analysis on the gap subject for you, so we can bring that back. And then lastly, I think we certainly could sharpen our pencils when it comes to the analysis, when it comes to disadvantaged communities. So thank you for bringing that up this evening.
Just a really quick follow-up about the VMT. CVAG is developing guidelines, and are those something that we could?
Possibly, yeah, possibly.
So we wouldn't have
I
to
just
spend any-
attended the first one today, so
Right.
kind of want to see how that unravels and what happens. But yeah, I did. CVAG had one meeting today, so.
Great, thank you.
Please. Commissioner Franz.
Sorry, staff's not going to want me to talk to them anymore after this. A couple of years ago, we have a moratorium on storage facilities that we put in place, and I know there was a timeline where we had to either have an ordinance change or do something, or it would expire. And so I really don't want that to expire, because we just kind of lost track of it, especially with, I know how busy staff is and how all the changes we've had. So if we could please bring that to the next meeting and remind us where we are with that and what the clock is ticking.
And forgive me, I did not hear the very first part in terms of which one was this?
The storage units. The
The
self-storage.
moratorium on the storage
Yeah,
units.
we have a moratorium, but there was
Yes.
a hard line where we either had to have something or it would go away.
That is
And-
correct.
And I don't remember what the rules are.
Okay, so I could tell you the general rule right now, without getting into discussion or anything like that for Brown Act purposes, but just the general rule for moratoriums in general is the first ordinance is generally a 45-day ordinance, unless changed by council. I'd have to double check to see what happened. Then the extension of the ordinance would be for 22 months and 15 days, so a total of 2 years. But we could go ahead and get exactly
Yeah, and
what
I know
happened.
that they did approve to extend it when we went, so I know it's at least been extended once, maybe twice. So I know we've got to be coming close to that 24
We
months,
will, yeah.
and that's what I'm worried about.
Okay, understood.
Yeah, we'll bring that back as a separate item and give a short presentation and so you know.
I have one more thing. Sorry, guys.
Please, sir, go ahead.
Sorry.
Go
So
ahead.
next time we have like gas station coming into, to the commission, could we have the number, like the math? We're talking about $20 million, in economic development, or like bring it to the city or something like that. Could you bring that math to us so we can see it?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean,
that would be helpful to make that a decision.
Yeah, we do have to remember, though, that if we want an in-depth analysis, we're going to have to hire a consultant. I did talk to the director of economic development, and, there's only so much that we can do, but we can certainly bring him back and he can dive into more details.
Yes,
so-
especially when we have a gas station, like, for discussion, that would be great. If we can have the economic development director here.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Perfect. All right. Any additional commissioner comments that we have for tonight? Any staff items? I'm sorry.
I just want to make a recommendation that we don't have items for the next meeting, so I just want to make sure at the end that we continue this to the March 12th meeting, since we won't have a second meeting in February, and we will have the general plan annual report at that meeting, and then we also, we're waiting for confirmation, but we may have a study session item 2 on a project, so we're waiting for confirmation on that.
All right. Thank you, sir. So we'll get a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
Hey, Chair, I gotta,
Oh,
I
I'm sorry.
believe we
Commissioner Santos,
held
forgive
yeah, sorry about that. I believe at the last meeting we did withheld in voting on the minutes from the previous meeting from December, so I think those are still pending because Felipe and myself were present and we would have not passed, if I recall correctly.
That's a good catch. Yeah.
It's not on the agenda, so can we do anything with that this evening, council?
It's not an agenda item, so we would need to bring it back.
All right. Thank you for catching that, Commissioner
Yeah,
Santos.
good point. We'll bring that back to the next meeting.
Thank you. All right. Having said that, we'll motion to adjourn once again. Thank you. Have a great evening, everyone. Thank you very much. 7:32.